in Sweden. I'm very glad to hear from you, Frederick. Thanks for joining us. Tell us,
Thank you
first of
for having
all,
me.
what's the attitude of the ordinary man and woman in the street in Sweden about tearing up your neutrality after centuries?
Well, the thing is that recent years, the opinion about NATO has been overall negative in Sweden. If you go back to just 2013, only 35% of the Swedes were positive to NATO. Uh, a different poll in 2014 says 31% of the Swedes were pro-NATO. And actually, the last election, the Social Democrats promised that we will never enter NATO when Sweden has a social democratic government. But we have a social democratic government now, and well, the polls changed when the war started, and in the last poll from the 10th of May, 53% of the Swedish population is pro-NATO. But I want to say that the propaganda in the what I call the bourgeois media has been very hard, and you have only heard pro-NATO stuff and anti-Russia stuff the last 6 months. So they have lobbied very hard for changing the Swedish citizens' view on NATO. The biggest argument here in Sweden is that NATO is a defensive organization, which we all know is a lie, as in your reportage from Serbia. Yeah.
Yeah, Serbia and Libya. I mean, what was defensive about a NATO attack on a North African country, namely Libya? How can people consider that to be defensive? How can they consider that NATO's part in the occupation of Afghanistan is defensive? How can they believe that the destruction of Yugoslavia was a proper defensive organization? Swedish people are not stupid. They must be one of the best educated people in the world. So how come they're falling for this?
Oh, that's a hard question, because Sweden has, like you said, it's a 200-year history of being neutral in theory, at least, and during the most Swedes are voting for Social Democratic Party that have been ruling Sweden for almost 100 years, with some small breaks here and there, but they have dominated Swedish politics. And you for sure know the old Swedish social democratic leader Olof Palme, who was very, very active for this neutral thing. So there are this school of old Swedish Democrats, Swedish social democrats that still oppose NATO, but they are like being silenced. They had a big party conference. They said when they were, the Social Democratic Party said that they will listen to their members, but instead it was like a Zoom meeting with a couple of thousand Social Democratic Party members that got a lecture from the pro-NATO leadership of the Social Democratic Party. But I think that if you look in the society and outside in our regular lives, we meet a lot of people that are still for Swedish neutrality. Because I saw a joke about, they said that we take less time to decide if we want to join NATO or not than we take which bag of chips we want to buy in the store for a Friday night. but I think that the lobbying has been extreme and for NATO, and the propaganda has been massive. At the same time, like yesterday was a national anti-NATO day in Sweden. I counted 17 big cities, the 17 biggest cities in Sweden, there were demonstrations against NATO. And you don't see the media reporting about that. And I know that today the protests continue in Gothenburg and Stockholm. And the media ignores that, so they don't want to show that there are a big opposition against NATO in Sweden, because the ones I'm a communist, so I think that the one who rules Sweden is the capitalists, and it's the richest capitalist in Sweden, called Wallenberg, was the first one to have a meeting with NATO when the decision from the Social Democrats came. So I think that it's a big machine working for NATO membership, but the Swedish population is split up. But I think it's still a strong grassroots movement against NATO. Only if you look back in 2017, when they had this big military drill called Aurora 17, there was thousands of people demonstrating in the streets. So you should not underestimate. I can't talk English.
No,
but,
I don't. No, I don't. And look, 50-50 is a very slim margin to make a decision of such magnitude on so quickly, as you say, quicker than the decision as to what crisps to buy for your Friday night TV viewing. Shouldn't there at least be a referendum on this?
Yeah, I think that the situation that is now is a whole, like you say. Only if you look back, like I told before, look back to 2017, only 32% of the Swedish population was pro-NATO. So this is a window where the imperialists see an opportunity to push Sweden into NATO. But if you wait 6 months, the situation can be a whole different, and the pro-NATO stance will shrink maybe. So that's why they are hurrying up, because this is maybe the only time in this decade when they can push Sweden into NATO. And there is a joke going around here that is, Sweden has to join NATO. Why? Because we're threatened. Why are we threatened? Yeah, because we want to join NATO. That is, it's some kind of moment 22. And so people still see that that neutrality is the way to peace, and we want peace. Swedish people want peace. We haven't had war in our territory for 200 years, and we want that to stay.
Well, we better hope the Turks dig their heels in and do as they've promised to do and veto it. I certainly hope so. Thanks, Fredrik, for providing that window from Sweden, which we don't often get here on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.